Hello, my friends. Hello, and welcome once again to Stately Von Manor, where Roger and I have returned to ask a big question. When is a big book just too damn big? You know, those of us who are heavily into reading, we have to grapple with this question, usually. I mean, unless you just use one of these exclusively, an e-reader, well, then you don't have to worry about it. But those of us who are readers of physical books and love physical books, you know, this is something we have to ponder. When is a big book just too damn big? At what point are you just like, no, that's too big? Especially those of us who, we read on the train or we read on the bus or we take our books with us wherever we go, whether we're going to work or any place else. This is something to contemplate. And it's something, as a reader, I've had to deal with and question over the years, but it really hit home to me on Halloween. On Halloween, while I was forced to give candy to wretched little children, I received a package in the mail. And it was, well, I'll show you what it is. And this made me think about this subject. This is monster-sized Hellboy. I am a huge Hellboy fan. I think Hellboy is one of the greatest comic book characters of all time. So when I saw this for sale, monster-sized Hellboy, I was like, oh, hell yes. I need monster-sized Hellboy in my life. What is monster-sized Hellboy and why did it get me thinking about this subject? Well, it is monster-sized. This is the largest comic book that I've ever owned. It's just, the sheer size and weight of the thing. It's got to be at least 10 pounds, I think, at least. I have no idea, but it's heavy. I can tell you, it's heavy. Because this has, there are a lot of Hellboy comics, but this has all of the essential ones. All of the stories and storylines that are essential to the saga of Hellboy. Because Hellboy comics basically tell one story. The story of Hellboy's life, his death, and his afterlife. He has an afterlife because he's, a demon. He's an occult detective, but he's also a demon. So, Hellboy tells one story, but there's a lot of story to tell. And this came in the mail, and it's huge. This thing is just, it's huge. Fortunately, they were smart. They didn't give it a dust jacket. That would have just ripped right off. And the problem with big, heavy books of this kind, this is the biggest I've ever encountered for an omnibus style comic book. This is much larger than a Marvel omnibus or a DC omnibus. This thing is just massive. And the problem with something like this is that it has, the potential to collapse with its own weight, it's just so big that if you hold it the wrong way, it could get damaged because it's just so heavy. It literally could collapse, probably into a black hole, and then it would destroy all of the universe. It's dangerous, this thing, monster-sized Hellboy. I will give you a better look at it since I'm frankly, as strong as I am, it gets a little tiresome holding this thing up. So let me show you. Let me give you a better look at this. So here is my monster-sized Hellboy, and it's up here on the table next to my just trade paperback Hellboy that I've read a million times, and you can tell. Just for comparison, and you can see just the length of this thing. The weight is, I don't even know how heavy this thing is, but it's very heavy. I think it's like 10 pounds or something, at least. And it's great though. I mean, just look at it. It's gigantic. And here on the table, probably the only place you could really read it, I think. But let's take a look inside. So here, just as a means of comparison for the artwork, I have the paperback on top of the monster-sized Hellboy. So you can see the same scene here reproduced in both. And the art is certainly larger and more impressive in the monster-sized Hellboy. But otherwise, it looks pretty much the same. Of course, Mignola's artwork is always impressive, and it is beautiful in this gigantic this gigantic book. I have to say, everything looks great. It is just, I mean, it is just so huge. So that was monster-sized Hellboy, and as you could see, it's really monster-sized. It's not the only gigantic book I have, though. Another one is this. This is the annotated Shakespeare, which is magnificent. This was printed in 1988. It has the complete plays of Shakespeare in it, all annotated and illustrated. I mean, it's a fantastic book. It's also huge. It's huge. It's not as heavy as the monster-sized Hellboy, but it's pretty heavy. Let's take a closer look. Okay, so here we have the annotated Shakespeare next to the complete works of Shakespeare. I mean, they're both the complete works, but one is annotated with a bunch of extra stuff and is gigantic, and the other is just the Barnes & Noble edition of the complete works, which many people think many people would think, I believe, is too large to carry around. Just this is too large to carry around with you, to say nothing of this. I mean, most people would probably just want to carry this around, just a paperback of, say, Hamlet or the individual plays. But this thing is enormous, and it's really amazing. This has all of the plays. It has lots and lots and lots of illustrations. I mean, it's just full of illustrations. We've got photographs of old-timey actors. And this is just an incredible book. I mean, if you're a Shakespeare fan, this is a great thing to find. And it's got these plates, these color plates, and then we've got other stuff in here. I mean, it's just amazing. We've got Twelfth Night here. It's incredible, but it's also gigantic. It is also gigantic. So much like the monster-sized Hellboy, it is monster-sized, and it is the kind of thing you would only be able to comfortably, I think, probably read at a table like this one. All right, so that was the annotated Shakespeare. So you saw two gigantic books. So those books, I mean, I love them both, but they are too damn big, I think. I mean, Hellboy I needed. I didn't need it because I have every other issue. I've got all the Hellboy stories already in other formats, as you saw, but I did need it. I needed it! And just as I need, Shakespeare. I need it! I need it! Although, the only way you could read that Shakespeare is like Hellboy. You'd need to put it on the table and read it that way. I don't think there's any other comfortable way to do it. And those are two extreme examples. But, this is something we have to grapple with as physical book readers. What is too big? A book like this is the big book of pulps. This is the big book of pulps, the Black Lizard big book of pulps, edited by Otto Penzler. He does a bunch of these big books. This is a big book. It's phone book sized, basically. Double columned. I mean, there's a massive amount of text in this. This is, frankly, a huge book. It seems pretty small, though, compared to those books I was just holding up. Still, it's really big. This is probably too big to put in your, purse. It perhaps is too big to put in your bag to take to work. This would be a very large thing to read, say, on the bus, but I'm sure somebody has done it. And I actually have carried this around with me in my work bag. When I was reading this, which was back, in 2008, 2007, I can't remember. But I was carrying this around and I was reading it. It was, but kind of awkward. I carried this around too. This is the complete fiction of H.P. Lovecraft. I carried this all over when I was reading the complete fiction of H.P. Lovecraft in this volume. Great volume from Barnes & Noble. But Barnes & Noble books, they're, the type of books you want to put on your shelves because they look nice. They look nice. But I actually read them. And for a lot of people, I think this would be awkward to carry around with you. I mean, this would be a strange thing, perhaps, to take out at the dentist. You might look a bit eccentric. I know, I've done it. But I'm eccentric anyway, so, who cares? And another thing comes to mind is that I also carried this around with me. This is the Landmark Thucydides. And I also carried around the Landmark Herodotus, which is even bigger than this. I probably should have grabbed that. It doesn't matter. I grabbed this. This is the Peloponnesian War by Thucydides. This is the Landmark edition with all the maps and the notes and all the stuff. I mean, if you're going to read Thucydides, this is how you want to read them, I think. But very large. Very large. And, it's not super heavy. I mean, especially compared to those books I was just holding up. But heavy enough. It's heavy enough, And there's always been this issue with books. I think for the longest time, that's one of the reasons that mass market paperbacks were just so popular, because they came in such a convenient size. I don't think I brought any mass markets up here. I have one down here. Hold on. It's such a convenient size. This is Ramsey Campbell's The Nameless, and it is very convenient. You could easily put this in your bag. You could easily stick this in a jacket pocket, perhaps, if you have the right jacket. As opposed to the bigger paperbacks or the trade paperbacks that are so popular now. This is just a handier size. All of this, as a reader, if you're concerned about this kind of thing, is probably, immaterial now because we have these. But a lot of people don't like these e-readers. Even though this completely, you don't have to worry about the physical size of your book because your book exists in this e-reader. Thousands of them can. But if you're into physical books, you have to make a decision at some point. What's the cutoff? When is a book just too damn big? Or are you comfortable carrying around something like this? I don't think anybody's comfortable carrying around monster-sized Hellboy. I mean, maybe if you're a Kryptonian, but anybody else would probably have issues with that. I mean, it's glorious, but it's ridiculous. It's frankly ridiculous. But, that's my question for the day. I'll shut up now, and I will see you next time.